In this video I show you how to turn this humble pallet into this delightful pile of usable timber with no blood, no tears, but a hell of a lot of sweat. Let's get started, shall we? Here are the first two things I'm going to use to try and take apart this pallet. Like I say, I've done quite a few of these. I am no expert, and as you're going to see, I do waste some material. But the hammer and the utility bar, total cost for both of those in the UK is £16. Just for full disclosure, I am going to be timing this little experiment. How quickly can you take apart a pallet? So I'm going to be keeping that timer, starting it every time I do some work, stopping it when I've got to move the camera or whatnot. So you can see the utility bar is really good. It's got two ends. It's got an end with a more severe angle, and that's really good for just hammering in and getting the board started. The process here is fairly self-explanatory. I will say that you do cause a touch of damage on the underside of the board as you're trying to wedge the end of the pry bar in there. That being said, the board comes off relatively smoothly, which you'll see in a second. I'm going to do a comparison of the three methods I'm using here. Next method you're going to see me using here is using a sledgehammer and just a block of wood. Sledgehammer at the minute on UK prices is about £25 to £30, really cheap, and you are wedging that block of wood right next to the cross beams, the ones that are supporting the boards, and you're just giving it a downwards tap. Sometimes you have to be quite aggressive. This one is slightly more aggressive in terms of you will splinter the boards a little bit if you're not careful. But as you can see, it loosens the boards quite well, but that utility bar is still handy for coming back in and releasing those boards completely. But that board came off beautifully cleanly. Like I said, this is a bit of an experiment. I'm seeing which method I prefer best. I've got a utility bar here, a pallet wrecker, from a site called Screwfix in the UK. It's about £32–33 if I remember rightly. Normally this is my go-to and it works beautifully. However, what you're going to see here is the board splitting. I splinter the ends of both sides. I split the wood straight down the middle. This doesn't normally happen. As I look closer at the pallet, I realised the flathead nails that were pushed in are not what I'm used to seeing. But yeah, this caused a lot of damage. So yes, it's really quick, but it's certainly not going to yield the most boards. So, time to compare. What's happened? The first method I used, the claw hammer in the utility bar, absolutely spot on. Now, pallets aren't normally like this. Those flathead nails aren't normally there. Normally they get pulled into the wood. Second method, as you can see, pristine again, using the block and the sledgehammer, absolutely spot on. And the final method, yeah, not so great. As you can see, the end of the wood is knackered on that end. The middle, not so bad. Then this end I split it. That doesn't mean this wood's unusable. I can still use a saw and cut it and use the middle section, but in terms of a length of timber, it's a no. There's that timer again. It's taken me 2 minutes 30 seconds to take off 3 boards, and the first few boards are always the easiest. It's when you start getting down to a wobbly pallet with no leverage. I'm not going to let you watch this in real time, that will be depressing. But as you can see, I'm going to use a range of methods, all 3 that I've shown you. Some work better than others, especially when you get to the ends of the pallet where there's 75 million nails in there. But I'll speed this up and then I'll show you the time it's taken at the end. So here's what we're calling B grade. Now this stuff here was damaged, but it is by no means unusable. I've got some amazing plans for it later down the line once I've collected enough of it. Here you can see the damage we're talking about. Some parts came apart. This is mainly down to the nails. I've got to say, this pallet looked incredible. It looked in such good condition, but those big wide flathead nails did cause some damage trying to come out. A lot of the nails pulled through when you used the pry bar, but this just didn't happen. As you can see, I'm treating this wood with true respect. Now for the good stuff, what have we got that is A grade? At least A grade for pallet wood. So a decent haul from that pallet, not the best, but as you can see, look how giddy I am, as well as sweaty. Very, very, very sweaty. And not a bad time. Less than 14 minutes, we'll call it under 15, for a full pallet breakdown. Don't get me wrong, some of those scraps that are left over that you saw me throw to one side, they still need a little bit of work. So here's where I reach for a set of pliers. Now this step, it's boring, but each board I go through and I straighten those nails out just a touch to make hammering them through a little easier. This avoids two things. Number one, when you're hammering those nails, sometimes they can bend back over on themselves, and I am not a patient person. I hate having to try and dig the claw hammer underneath them and straighten them back out again. And number two, it stops some of the splintering and the splitting of the wood when you are hammering them through. It is a worthwhile part of it, and it does make, as you can see, the rest of it quite an easy process. Now, this is completely worthwhile in my mind, because the more you can preserve the wood, the better product you can make with it afterwards. Yes, it's going to have nail holes in, I agree, but even just this length of wood I'm looking at here, I can buy it from my local DIY store, shall we call it, the one with the orange label, but a length of wood that thickness is going to cost about £5. So in a short while in the video I'll share the total time it's taken to disassemble the pallet and salvage a number of usable boards, so that you can work out whether it's worth your investment in time. But as you can see, it's a fairly straightforward process once you get to this point, and you are just straightening, hammering over and over again until you have got several lengths of usable boards. They're always going to have knot holes, they're always going to have nail holes in them, they're always going to be a little bowed, a little warped. However, £5 a board compared to absolutely nothing, it's a no-brainer. So here I am just finishing off the last board, and it's time to count up. Let's see how many actual high quality, pallet wood high quality lengths of timber we've got. And let's measure it up and compare it. Let's see how it does compared to my local DIY store, where you can go and you can get rough sawn timber for a current price of £8.27 for 2,400mm lengths. This same thickness, this same width. So we'll count the boards up, we'll see how much this would have cost to go to my local DIY store and buy. So these boards all measure around 900mm width. They're about 160mm depth, and the shorter boards are around 1000mm long, with the longer boards being about 1200mm long. Now, ignoring the boards that are left on the floor, the ones that I could still salvage some lengths out of, I've got 8 lengths at 1000mm, and I've got 3 lengths at 1200mm. Total board length is 11,600mm. If I were to go to my local DIY store, 11,600mm of white wood or pine would cost me £39.97. Total time elapsed, 22 minutes, 5 seconds. Call it 22 minutes. That is not a bad investment for £40 worth of timber. I will add as well, obviously this timber comes with nail holes, it comes with splinters, it comes with effort and sweat, but I've got to say, the timber from my local store is no better. In fact, the timber's worse. It's bowed, it's warped, it's just generally... So if you have gotten absolutely anything out of this video, I would really appreciate if you like it, if you subscribe to it, but more importantly for me, I'd love to see your comments below. I've got this timber now, I want to know what to do with it. I've got things that I've done in the past, but I would really like a challenge. I want you to come up with the strangest thing you can possibly think of. What do you want me to make with this timber? I'll leave you now with me unboxing my brand new toy to replace the thing that nearly set fire to my garage the other day. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, and I wish you all the best. Bye.